Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming, and a pretty special video today because we're talking about Code Vein, the follow-up to the original game that I covered when it released here on the channel back in 2019. It was one of the first games that I properly covered for the channel, and it's over 6 years ago that happened. Code Vein was one of my favorite Souls-like releases of its time, with, a unique anime-esque style. Yeah, more grounded Souls-like gameplay with fun boss battles, but things like the code system that really stole the show. Each code was like a core of a build. You'd have your agile dex options, heavy strength, and so on. But in the usual Souls games, it took quite a bit to fully respec and redo a build, and sometimes you just couldn't. Meanwhile, the code system will let you swap between them pretty easily, changing your playstyle and build in a very short time. So very cool for variety in the gameplay. Some areas, some bosses, different builds would just feel better. So from visuals to combat, build system, story, I just enjoyed the original a lot. And so now we're about to get to play Code Vein 2, so here's what I think you should know. First up, it launches super soon, January 29th or 30th, based on your time zone, on current gen consoles and PC. For story, it's interesting. The story continues in the same world and there's a lot of key terms that are being repeated, but there's actually a big separation between them. Originally, we were playing in a post-apocalyptic environment, and we will be doing that again. But the whole thing there was you're all held in place by a red mist in a small zone. But it was actually protecting those within from what was outside. Inside, you have the revenants, the revived dead that are much like vampires. They'd have to keep consuming blood of some kind, so there's a resource called blood beads. Not too detached from the concept of Dark Souls and the Hollows and going mad after being alive for too long or dying and coming back too many times. We were a particularly strong revenant though, one that was strangely able to look through memories and end up piecing things together. The situation wasn't good because the whole source of blood beads was drying up, people becoming more desperate, and in the true ending, a key character sacrifices themselves to form a new reliable source of blood beads, basically stabilizing things. So with that ending, you have lots of different potential to continue on, but we're pretty separate from it. You're now in the future, and there's a kind of century gap from the original game, so we got a new roster of characters. And in this future, humans and revenants manage to coexist until something twists the current revenants into monsters known as the horrors. We play as a revenant hunter that's trying to stop the world from collapsing by time traveling. So there's a character called Lou that can do that. Pretty crazy concept off rip. So we will be going in the past and exploring a post-apocalyptic world again, trying to find clues on what made this all happen and if we can stop it. So on that way, we're going to meet many of the key revenant characters, heroes that basically sealed the doomsday. But since those seals are breaking, we have to find a different method, I guess. So you'll learn what happened to these key characters, but with how you interact with them, you'll actually alter their fate in the future. What you do in the past should impact the future. You might do something now that you think is good, but it causes something terrible later on. So I hope they follow through with that concept because it sounds interesting. The original had multiple possible endings, so I do trust them to commit to that. But it was the story trailer that really suggests the goal to save the world that you come from is going to conflict with what you might feel is the right thing to do in the past. So should be interesting. Another big feature though is obviously the character creator. It's funny because the original had a really fun character creator. I remember people were actually drawn in to try it because of that. This is something that just happens with RPGs and MMOs where they have great character creators for that reason. It hooks people into games that they might never try otherwise. So Code Vein is back with a bigger and better one. They're pretty proud of it. They highlight it as a key system, showing you how you can choose from tons of options, like specifically modifying each aspect of a section of hair, its length, how curly it is, and so on. And outside of the creator, you've got your costumes and outfits that you can swap between. You can customize these with individual colors, specific pieces of the outfit, even change the textures. So yeah, it does look pretty cool. But the big one is obviously combat. While we're playing as a revenant hunter this time, we do have revenant powers again, thanks to this artifact that's on our back, giving us a kind of special version of them. So rather than familiar blood red, we're seeing a lot of gold. But yes, we'll be able to then use it on familiar skills. So again, we have a resource that's like a mana system known as ichor. We build that up by draining blood off targets. We see similar skills like the duo wolf head in the trailers, but there's also a pile of new ones. Core mechanics of the combat will be back then, so by attacking enemies you'll stagger them, and if you get a proper stun, they're vulnerable to a special drain attack, so you get a more interesting animation and a kill. Since there's lots of types of drain attacks, they'll provide different benefits to the animation and theme, so you'll choose which and why you're running one at the moment, and then get a different visual style. The slot that you swap the drain options for, These are known as jails, so you swap those based on context. So just like any Souls-like, you've got regular enemies that come in packs, strong enemies like elites, mini-bosses, and full-on boss battles that should be memorable. We have a return of the familiar weapon system with a couple additions. So I've seen familiar stuff like your one or two-handed weapons, your sword, spears, hammers, the guns for physical range attacks. I've also seen a bow. There's also new ones like the rune blades and twin blades. But yeah, similar concept. Bigger weapons with more force behind them, but slower, longer animations, leaving you vulnerable. So you got things like the greatsword, hammer, or halberd for that. The bayonet is your ranged gun for physical range with some agile options but limited melee. One-handed swords are probably going to be the thing they start us with, but I'm very interested to see, say, the rune blades and the twin blades and how they work. We also have a return for forma, aka skills, so you spend your ichor on that. There's different kinds of these. You can have up to 4 forma equipped, and it's tied to your weapon, so some weapons can use these kinds of skills, as made clear in the UI. Can't use every skill on one weapon. Again, encouraging variety. But they're split into categories. Combat skills for more weapon-focused stuff. There's magic skills for ranged spell options. There's support skills, which are basically buffs. They've also shown bequeath forma, a temporary unique weapon summon. So brief showcases of that, like a double machine gun Gatling gun thing, or giant greatsword for one big single hit. They're described as ultimate skills, so leaving you vulnerable, take a long time to do, but are well worth the results. And outside of the forma skills, there's also defensive forma, like tools. So you got one where you can block, or you might just have a parry instead, or instead you've got a special dodge to iframe attacks, probably great for a big one. And we do have the partner system. Because the game is a solo game, there's no multiplayer as a warning about that. You instead have a partner, which can be with you in the combat doing their own thing, or instead not with you, but enhancing you in a passive way for better stats and such. But if you do have them with you, they could revive you when you go down, so that's going to be a helpful learning crutch. But the partner, when they're fighting, they can use their own drain attacks and special skills, and that actually gives you a bit of ichor when they drain something. So that is definitely useful. I'll experiment with both, but right now, I would assume having the partner out is the easier option. But the terms for it is when they're out fighting with you, you've summoned them, but when they're providing the passives to you instead, that's when they're assimilated. Each character is a unique partner though, so they have their own link and partner traits. So when they're out, you'll get a shield, and when that takes damage, it breaks. While the partner trait provides you with passives, referred to as combat benefits or stat bonuses, we'll have to look at that. But by having a better relationship with that partner, you actually get better bonuses. One big change that I'm looking forward to is the levels, because in the original Code Vein, they were very simplistic, very tight and corridor-esque. Maybe you could go left or right occasionally, but it all looped back into itself, and the hidden items and such were only hidden by perspective or a bit of verticality, not a lot of exploration. It wasn't complex or large levels per se, even if I did find them visually cool, like say the city near the end of the game, the White City. Now they can expand a bit, things can be wider, you can get actual exploration, and they're large enough levels to demand the use of a mount, which is a motorcycle, so should be interesting. They still give us good visuals though, distinct areas like this polluted and sunk city, an undead forest, a ravine filled with acid. I trust them to do a good job because they did a good job with this in the original. But now they can be a bit more ambitious, basically. One of the last things to mention is the blood code system, because obviously I talked about that in the intro. You can customize your playstyle by changing your codes. These then change your base stats. So let's say one code has the strength stat as the highest one, or another code has mind, another code has dex as the highest one. These also change your health and your max ichor count. So if you're going to do a forma spam skill or spells build, you want more ichor, so you pick a code that has higher ichor or better scaling for these things. So heavy weapons probably want higher average strength again, or dex weapons for your twin blades or range weapons. So as you progress the game, you unlock more and you progress them, giving you better bonuses. And in the original, it was very easy to swap between them. So again, that was a really standout feature in my memory. I'm looking forward to experimenting with it again. Absolute last thing I want to mention is the world and situation's definitely dark, but not all the characters are. They recently revealed the Xenon character, who looks ridiculous and edgy at first. Then you see his rainbow cape, and he starts breaking out into song and performs a mini musical for his trailer. So basically, I just want to tell you, be ready for anything. They're being a bit more creative, clearly. And this character has become a fan favorite instantly. But yeah, what's going to happen is I'm going to be covering the game as it launches in a matter of days, so I'll see you there for that. I'm obviously really excited for it. So it's pretty cool we finally got it to some sort of sequel here that I'm able to cover again. So until then, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.